never forget.
I'm going to rank my favorite 28 Weeks Later franchise movies from, I'll do most favorite to least favorite. So I'll start at number one. My favorite 28 Weeks, 28 Days Later franchise movie would have to be 28 Weeks Later. And hear me out. I am very aware of the bad reviews that movie got off of Rotten Tomatoes. But growing up, I genuinely loved that movie. That was always a movie for me to just sit down and rewatch during October, where I would do the 31 Halloween movie marathon. And I would say that movie, in my opinion, was incredible because the realism behind it. My favorite scene was when they were all in the house. Like, this was towards the beginning of the movie, and the dad jumped out the window and just ran. He left his wife. He said, I want no parts, and he ran. It did catch up to him in the end, but that scene just was spot on because I would have done the same. Like, I really would have done the same. Um, the plot, the intensity behind the movie, I just feel like that movie was just so underrated as well, you know? I'm going to number two, which of course will have to be 28 Days Later. This is my second favorite out of the franchise because the involvement, and this also was the movie that started it all. Definitely was. I'm so excited to see how this all comes to an end, but just to see how the rage virus first, you know, had its impact on UK and on London as a whole. Just with the monkeys and the scientists, it's kind of like, and normally with zombie apocalypse, you always get that scene with the scientists explaining how the virus got out. And it's so airy and it's so intense, and you're like, you know. And then also the scene where Jim is in the hospital. He's all alone. He's confused. He's like, where's everyone? And then he goes into the streets and starts shouting, hello. And it's like, don't do that, you know? But it also, and whenever I see that scene, I just think about The Walking Dead, which is my favorite show. And the reason is because Rick Grimes, he wakes up in hospital in season one, episode one, and he's confused. And he's like, where's everyone? Where's my wife? Where's my child? And it's like, it definitely, shows some, similarities between the show, The Walking Dead, and the movie 28 Days Later. So I definitely would say also the characters in 28 Days Later, I would say they are likable, more likable than the characters in 20 Weeks Later. And you definitely want them to survive. Like, this is like, yeah, you want them to live throughout the movie. You want them to just have a good ending. And then of course they come into contact with the military, and it's like you just see a trend of whenever the military is around, just know bad things are bound to go down, like literally. So that's my second favorite. My third favorite would have to be 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. And the reason is because that movie definitely gave me the reassurance I needed after watching 28 Years Later, which confused the fuck out of me. Like it really did. But the Bone Temple, that the cinematic tone, the deliverance, just the intensity as well. It was just so beautiful to watch from beginning to end. And it just, the ending was like, wow, like you're just, it just gives you that, that passion, that need for the next one. You're like, I'm so amped up. I'm so excited. Also, I do want to kind of share how 28 years later and 28 years later, Bone Temple have some different tone aspects to both the films. And I would say partially that is because of the change in direction with the directors. Really? No, I'm filming right now. But that is because of the change in direction with the different directors. Well, come on, bud. I would say it was pretty cool to see. Of course. No, I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, you're okay. Say hi. Yes. Yeah. So I would say the Bone Temple is number 3. And number 4 is 28 Years Later. Just watching it for the first time, I would say the first scene when the kids are in the living room watching the Teletubbies, you're like, what's going on? And then, yeah. But the beginning and the end kind of left you a sense of airiness. And I would say, which is why I do like the Bone Temple, because it explains everything so much simpler and just so much direct, you know? Even with the alpha zombie, you get more of a story, you know, a compelling story from him and the Bone Temple. So I would say that's the reason why 28 Years Later is number 4. I am American. I'm not from the UK, and after doing some research to get a better understanding of the movie, I found out some things about the Jimmy group and what that was symbolic of. So I'll just put it in the video as well instead of explaining it, but mind blown. Definitely makes a lot of sense. And aside from the symbolism of it, to think about that on a bigger picture, a bigger spectrum, in like a universal thought, it's just insane how fear can drive people to doing the most insane things.